I knew something was off the second I saw the key in the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. The house was still, almost unnervingly quiet. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of birds outside were the only noises that filled the room. Yet, the moment that key turned, I felt the air change. It was 11:47 p.m. Who comes home at this hour? The door clicked open, and the familiar outline of her silhouette appeared in the threshold. She didn't say a word. Didn't make the usual, "I'm home," announcement like she always did after a trip. I looked at her, standing there in the doorway, holding her luggage. She didn't even glance in my direction. Her gaze was focused straight ahead, as though the weight of her own thoughts had a stronger pull than anything or anyone else. Her presence didn't fill the room the way it normally did. It was like she was physically there, but emotionally miles away. The woman who walked through that door wasn't the same woman who had left for the seminar just 3 days ago. I stood up from the couch, the unease in my chest growing. "You're back," I said. The words felt foreign, almost like I wasn't sure how to greet her anymore. She didn't respond at first. She dropped her suitcase by the door, almost as though it was a burden she couldn't bear to carry any longer. I cleared my throat, stepping toward her. "How was the seminar?" There it was again, the silence. I could hear her breathe, but there was no immediate response. Then she finally looked at me. There was nothing in her eyes, no spark, no warmth. Just emptiness. "It was fine," she said, her voice distant. "I learned a lot." I nodded, but the words felt hollow. I had been bracing for more. More of the excitement she always carried back from these seminars. Her words had never felt so small. I swallowed, feeling my own discomfort grow. "You don't seem fine," I said, my voice quiet, almost as if I was testing the waters. She blinked, like the question had startled her. For a brief moment, I thought she might break down, but she didn't. Instead, she slowly started walking past me toward the kitchen, her steps calculated, deliberate. "I'm not sure what you want me to say," she finally replied, her back to me. "You wouldn't understand." I felt the room get colder. It wasn't about me not understanding. It was about her not wanting to be understood. "What happened?" I asked, stepping closer. "You've been distant since you walked in." I don't know what to do with that." She paused, but didn't turn around. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter, and for the first time, I saw her tremble. It was barely noticeable, but it was enough to make my heart skip a beat. "I don't think I'm the same person I was before I left," she said, her voice wavering. "And I don't know if I can go back to being that person." The words hit me like a wave I wasn't prepared for. The air in the room suddenly felt heavier. "Emma, what are you talking about?" I asked, my throat tightening. She finally turned to face me, her eyes, those eyes I had spent years studying, strangely unfamiliar. There was a coldness in them, like she had been swallowed by something she couldn't control. "I'm not who you think I am," she said, slowly walking toward me. Her pace was measured, calculated, like she was carefully choosing each step, each word. For the first time in years, I felt a distance between us that was deeper than physical space. "You never really knew me, did you?" she continued, her voice softer now, but it wasn't kind. It was almost accusatory. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't sure if I was even supposed to respond. She stepped closer to me, and for the first time since her return, her eyes softened just slightly. But the warmth in them wasn't the warmth I remembered. It was colder, more detached, like she was apologizing for something that wasn't her fault. "I've changed," she whispered, "and I need you to accept that." I stood there, frozen, trying to piece together the fragments of this strange version of her that had appeared out of nowhere. The woman who left for a seminar had returned as a stranger. "I need space," she said, breaking the silence that hung heavy between us. "I'm not sure what this relationship is anymore." And with that, she turned around, leaving me standing there, stunned. The sound of her footsteps echoing down the hall was the only thing that filled the space between us. I stood there, motionless, in a house that suddenly didn't feel like home. I stood there for what felt like hours, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what just happened. The words Emma had said to me were still echoing in my head. "I need space." What did that even mean? What kind of space did she need? And why had everything changed so suddenly? Was it the seminar? Was it something she had learned there? Or was this just the final step in a process that had been brewing for months, maybe years? I didn't know how long I stood there, but when I snapped out of my daze, it was already well past midnight. I slowly walked towards the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator and the creak of the floorboards the only sounds in the otherwise silent house. My eyes landed on her suitcase by the door, and the thought of it almost made me sick. Was she planning to leave for good? Or was this just temporary? I walked to the living room, slumping into the worn-out chair that had once been my favorite spot. Everything felt wrong now. The house, our home, didn't feel like a place where two people shared a life anymore. I tried to think back to the last time we were happy, but the memories felt fuzzy. Was it last month? Last year? It was hard to pinpoint. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had been brushing things under the rug for too long. Small things that didn't seem important at the time. A late night at the office, a comment about how I wasn't paying attention to her, the way she had started spending more time away from me and less time with the family. But I had never imagined it would lead to this. To her telling me she didn't know who she was anymore. To her telling me she wasn't sure about us anymore. I glanced at the clock again. It was nearly 1:30 a.m. I couldn't just sit here. I had to talk to her, to figure this out, to find some clarity. I stood up, my legs feeling unsteady, and made my way to the stairs. I hesitated before reaching the top, the hallway dimly lit by the faint glow of the nightlight. Emma's door was cracked open, just a sliver. I could hear her soft breathing, but I didn't knock. I couldn't bring myself to. I was too scared of what I might hear, too scared of what she might say next. Instead, I went back downstairs and paced in the living room. I tried calling her name, but the words stuck in my throat. I couldn't make myself go up there, couldn't bear the thought of seeing her retreat even further into herself. What was happening to her? What was happening to us? Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence and self-doubt, I picked up my phone and sent her a message. Can we talk tomorrow? I just don't understand what's going on. I stared at the screen for a while, hoping for a response, for some reassurance, but nothing came. I tossed the phone on the couch in frustration. My mind was a tangled mess of questions and fears. Had I missed the signs? Had she been unhappy for longer than I realized? I thought back to the last time we had spent any real time together, a week before she left. We had gone out for dinner. It was a nice restaurant, and we'd laughed, shared stories, and even talked about our future. But now, thinking about it, I wondered if that had been the last time I truly saw her. Was she already checked out? Or had the seminar opened her eyes to something that was always there, but had been buried deep down? I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake the fatigue away. But every time I closed them, I saw her face. Her words kept playing on a loop in my head. I'm not sure if I'm in love with you anymore. That hit harder than anything. It wasn't just about her needing space. It was about her questioning everything we'd built. Everything we'd been. Was it all just a facade? Was this some kind of midlife crisis? Or was there something more to it? Something darker and more complicated that I was too scared to confront? I stood up again, pacing back and forth in the quiet living room. My mind kept going in circles, thinking of every possible scenario. But nothing made sense. No matter how I spun it, this wasn't about the seminar. The seminar was just the catalyst. This was something deeper, something neither of us had been brave enough to face. And then, in the quietest moment, I heard something. It was faint at first, but it grew louder as I strained to listen. A soft, almost imperceptible sound, like a rustling. I stopped moving and froze. The sound was coming from upstairs. I walked cautiously toward the stairs and paused again, listening. This time, I could hear it more clearly. The soft clinking of something metallic. My heart raced as I slowly made my way up. My mind raced too, running through every possibility of what she might be doing. As I reached the top of the stairs, I hesitated. The door to Emma's room was still cracked open, but the noise was coming from the guest room now. I stood there, barely breathing, not sure what I would find on the other side of that door. I had never felt more unsure about anything in my life. What was she doing? Was she packing? Was she planning to leave, or was she hiding something else from me? I wasn't ready for what I was about to discover. The door to the guest room was slightly ajar, just enough to see the dim glow of a bedside lamp spilling out into the hallway. The noise that had startled me earlier was now gone, but a strange tension lingered in the air. I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like time had slowed down, like everything was conspiring against me, urging me to leave things alone. But I couldn't. I needed answers. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, my feet barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. Every muscle in my body was tight, anticipating what might be waiting behind that door. For a moment, I thought about turning back, about pretending everything was fine and just letting Emma be. But I couldn't. Not after what she'd said. Not after the way she'd looked at me earlier, so distant, so cold. I gently pushed the door open and stepped inside, trying not to make a sound. The room was dark except for the small pool of light from the lamp, casting long shadows across the walls. Emma wasn't in bed. Instead, she was sitting at the desk by the window, her back to me. I could see her shoulders hunched forward, her hands trembling slightly as she scrolled through her phone. She didn't hear me enter, didn't even acknowledge my presence. The sound of the phone clicking and swiping filled the room, but there was something so eerie about it, like she was trying to escape into the screen, to hide from whatever was going on inside her head. I stood there for a moment, watching her. I could feel my breath catch in my throat, unsure of what to say or do. This was different. Everything about this felt different. The woman sitting at that desk wasn't the woman I had known for the past 6 years. She wasn't the woman who had laughed with me, who had shared her hopes and fears. This version of Emma was someone I didn't recognize. Emma. My voice was barely above a whisper, unsure if I should even break the silence. She didn't flinch, didn't turn around. Her fingers continued to swipe across the screen with a mechanical precision, like she was doing something important but not really paying attention to it. I walked closer, my steps hesitant. Emma, we need to talk, I said again, a little louder this time. Finally, she looked up, her face pale in the soft light. There was no emotion in her eyes, just a hollow stare that made my stomach twist. She studied me for a moment, her lips pressed into a thin line, before dropping her gaze back to the phone. I'm not in the mood for this, okay? She said flatly, her voice almost robotic. I took another step forward, my heart sinking. Not in the mood for what? We're not talking at all anymore. What happened to us? She didn't respond right away. Instead, she clicked something on her phone, then set it down on the desk. What do you want from me, Ryan? I don't even know who I am anymore, let alone who we are. Her words hit me like a punch. We? Was this really happening? Was she really saying this? I stood there in stunned silence, trying to find the words. I was about to say something when her voice interrupted me again. I don't love you the way I used to, she said, her voice cracking. I thought I did, but it's not the same anymore. I'm sorry. I really am. But I've changed, and I don't know how to make you understand that. I felt the room tilt, like the ground beneath me was shifting, threatening to swallow me whole. My mind couldn't process what she was saying. I'd heard the words before in movies or read them in books, but to hear them coming from Emma, the woman I had shared my life with, was something I wasn't prepared for. Emma, I whispered, my voice barely audible, the words choking in my throat. Is there someone else? Are you seeing someone else? Her eyes met mine then, and for the first time since she walked through the door tonight, I saw something real in them. Pain, regret, maybe even fear. But it was fleeting, disappearing as quickly as it came. No, she replied sharply, too quickly for me to believe it. No, it's not like that. It's not someone else. It's just me. It's just me. Her words hung in the air like a thick fog. I couldn't make sense of them. How could she be so sure, yet so lost at the same time? If it wasn't someone else, then what was it? What had happened to her? To us? She stood up from the desk, her movements stiff, almost mechanical. I need some space, Ryan. I need to figure things out. I need to be alone for a while. Her voice was trembling now, but her resolve was clear. There was no arguing with her, no pleading to make it better. I stood frozen in place, the weight of her words crashing down on me. This wasn't just about her needing time or distance. This was about something far deeper, something I couldn't reach no matter how hard I tried. I don't know how we got here, I said, my voice trembling. We were fine. We were happy. I thought we were happy. Emma didn't respond. She just stood there, her back turned to me, her body rigid with tension. For a brief moment, I thought she might break down, but instead, she reached for her phone again, her fingers gripping it tightly like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I didn't know what else to say. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know if I even could. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Okay, you need space. I'll give you space. But don't you dare shut me out completely, Emma. Don't you dare. Her shoulders stiffened, but she didn't turn around. The silence between us grew so heavy, I could feel it pressing in from every side. I slowly backed out of the room, my heart breaking with every step. I didn't know what was happening, and the worst part was that I had no idea how to stop it. The silence after I left Emma alone in the guest room felt suffocating. The house, which had once been full of conversation, laughter, and small moments that made up our days, now seemed hollow. Each creak of the floorboard beneath my feet, each tick of the clock, seemed amplified in the emptiness. I didn't know what to do with myself. My mind was racing, spiraling through all the things Emma had said, but no matter how much I thought about it, nothing made sense. I had always believed that relationships were supposed to weather storms together, that if something went wrong, you fixed it. You didn't run from it. But Emma's retreat into silence, her withdrawal into something I couldn't reach, felt like something deeper than a simple disagreement or a rough patch. It felt like the end of something, the slow unraveling of a thread that had once seemed so solid. I spent hours downstairs that night, not sleeping, not even attempting to. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go to her. I wanted to force a conversation, to ask her what she was thinking, what had happened to the woman I married. But I was scared that if I asked, I wouldn't get the answers I wanted. Or worse, that I'd get the truth, and it would be too painful to bear. By morning, nothing had changed. The sun filtered weakly through the curtains, casting long shadows across the room, but it did little to lift the oppressive weight that had settled in my chest. Emma was still in the guest room. I hadn't heard a sound from her all night, and I wasn't sure whether that was a relief or something far worse. I dragged myself out of bed and into the kitchen, where I stood in front of the coffee machine, mechanically pressing buttons but not really focusing on what I was doing. My mind kept wandering back to last night, to her words, her eyes, those cold, hollow eyes that didn't seem like hers anymore. It was like she had already checked out of the life we had built together, like I was standing on the outside of a window, watching her walk away but being unable to reach her. I wasn't sure how much time had passed before I heard the soft shuffle of footsteps behind me. I didn't turn around immediately, not sure if I was ready to face her. But then I heard her voice. "Ryan, we need to talk." Those words, "we need to talk," they always had the power to stop time for me. They were the words that signaled the beginning of something serious, something that required confrontation. But this time, they felt different. This wasn't the start of a normal conversation. It was the beginning of something I wasn't ready for. I turned around slowly, dreading what was coming, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything between us. Emma stood in the doorway, looking almost fragile. Her hair was pulled back into a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing the usual confident demeanor she'd always had. She looked smaller, almost as if she were trying to hide from the world, from me. "I'm listening," I said, my voice hoarse. She stood there for a moment, taking in a slow breath, as if searching for the right words. She wasn't looking at me directly. Instead, her eyes were fixed on the ground, tracing the cracks in the tiles like she was trying to escape the weight of whatever conversation we were about to have. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she began, her voice unsteady. "About us. About me. About who I am." I swallowed hard, not knowing whether I wanted to hear the rest or not. "And what did you come up with?" I asked, trying to sound composed, trying to keep the panic from creeping into my voice. She finally met my gaze, but there was nothing there. No recognition, no warmth, just a strange emptiness that sent a chill down my spine. "I don't think I'm the person you married anymore," she said quietly. "And I don't think I'm the person I used to be, either. This whole thing between us, it's like I'm living a life that doesn't belong to me. And I don't know how to get back to who I was, or if I even want to." I could feel my breath hitch. Every word she said was like a nail being driven into the heart of everything we had built. "You don't want to get back to who you were?" What was she saying? "You're not making any sense," I muttered, more to myself than to her. "You're saying you don't want to fix this? That everything we've built means nothing to you now?" She shook her head, a small, almost imperceptible movement, but it was enough to make my heart sink. "It's not like that, Ryan. It's not that I don't care about you. I do. But I don't know if I love you anymore. I don't know if I can love you the way you want me to." Her words hung in the air, suffocating me. "Then what is this?" I asked, my voice cracking, betraying the fear I had been hiding. "What are we doing here? What are you doing?" She didn't respond right away. She just stood there, her eyes focused somewhere in the distance. like she wasn't even present anymore. I'm trying to figure that out, she whispered. I don't know if I can give you the answers you're looking for. I just don't know. I felt a lump form in my throat. The Emma I had known, the woman who had once been so certain of everything, was gone. And in her place was someone lost, adrift in a sea of confusion, struggling to hold on to a sense of self that was slipping away. I didn't know how to help her. I didn't know if I could. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. The silence was thick with unspoken words, with things we both needed to say but couldn't bring ourselves to. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. This might be the beginning of the end. Finally, Emma broke the silence, her voice barely a whisper. I think I need to go. I think I need to be on my own for a while. And just like that, the last thread holding us together seemed to snap. She wasn't asking for space. She was telling me that she was leaving. Emma. I started, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't know how to stop her, how to make her see that we could fix this, that we could fight for what we had. But the words weren't there anymore. They were lost, just like her. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the door. I didn't stop her. I couldn't. The person who had once been the love of my life was already walking away, and there was nothing I could do to bring her back. The door clicked shut behind her, and the sound reverberated through the silence of the house. It felt final, like the closing of a chapter one wasn't ready to finish. I stood there, frozen, as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. Emma was leaving. She had actually said it, and in her eyes, I could see that she meant it. There was no going back. I didn't even know where she had gone after that. She left so quickly, her bags already packed by the door, the car keys dangling from her hand as if she had been preparing for this moment long before I even knew it was coming. In a way, I should have seen the signs. The signs had been there, small things that I had dismissed, things that had started to make me feel like I was living with a ghost. But I was too afraid to confront it, too afraid to ask the questions that might force me to face the truth. I sat down heavily on the couch, my head in my hands, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. The house felt different now, empty, like a shell. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was alone, even though I had only just watched her walk out the door. The air felt colder, the walls closer. I wasn't sure how much time had passed, but when I looked up again, I found myself staring at the empty space where Emma had been. The space between us felt insurmountable, like a chasm had opened up overnight, and I was on one side, screaming for her to come back, while she was already halfway across the world, running towards something I couldn't reach. I tried calling her, but the phone rang endlessly without an answer. I sent messages, text after text, each one more desperate than the last, asking her to come back, asking her to explain what had happened, what had changed. But there was no response, just the same silence that had been settling between us for days. For hours, I sat in the quiet of the living room, feeling like I was drowning in my own confusion. How could I have let things get this far? How had I not noticed that the woman I loved was slipping away from me? The thought tortured me, gnawing at me relentlessly. The worst part was the uncertainty, the not knowing. Was it me? Had I done something wrong? Had I failed her in some way? I couldn't remember the last time I had truly felt close to her, the last time we had shared something real. She had been distant for months, but I thought it was just the usual ups and downs. We'd had them before, but this was different. This felt like an end, not just another rough patch. I stood up, pacing around the room, trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wanted to drive after her, to find her and force her to talk, to make her see that this wasn't just some passing phase, that what we had was worth saving. But another part of me, one that was quieter, more rational, knew that chasing her would only push her further away. I couldn't make her stay if she didn't want to. That's when it hit me. What if she had already made up her mind? What if this wasn't about fixing things? What if it was about her discovering something about herself that had been there all along, but had been buried deep down? The thought sent a chill through me. What if she had already decided that she didn't need me anymore? What if she had found someone else? Or maybe she just didn't want to be tied to anyone anymore. Maybe she had been carrying that weight for longer than I had realized, and I had missed all the signs. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone again. This time, I wasn't going to send another message. I wasn't going to keep calling her, hoping she'd pick up. I had to make a decision. I couldn't wait around forever, living in the unknown. I sent one last text. If you need space, I'll give it to you. But please, Just tell me what's really going on. I need to understand. I need closure. I hit send and put the phone down, feeling like a part of me had just left my body. What had happened to us? How had we gotten here? How had everything that once seemed so certain, so secure, turned into such a mess? The silence in the house felt unbearable now, each minute stretching into what seemed like an eternity. I had no idea how long I sat there, just staring at the phone, hoping for a response, hoping for something that would make sense of all of this. But nothing came. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, anything, just to feel something other than this crushing emptiness. But all I could do was sit there, alone, waiting for an answer that I wasn't sure I would ever get. The next morning felt like a blur. I awoke with a stiff neck, the weight of everything that had happened the night before still pressing down on me. My phone sat on the table beside the couch, screen blank. I hadn't heard a word from Emma since she left, and that silence was beginning to feel like a slow, steady unraveling of everything I had known. I tried to tell myself that I should just wait, that if she needed space, I had to respect that. But deep down, I knew that waiting was killing me. The uncertainty, the not knowing what was really happening, was driving me to the edge. I stood up, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet as I moved toward the kitchen. The house was quiet, the same eerie quiet it had been since she walked out. The coffee maker whirred to life as I pressed the button, but even the smell of fresh coffee didn't offer me any comfort. I stared out the window at the empty street, the stillness of the world outside reflecting the stillness inside me. I couldn't keep waiting around like this. I had to do something, even if I didn't know exactly what that something was. The idea of sitting in this house, watching the days pass without a word from her, felt unbearable. So I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and drove to the one place that might give me some answers, her parents' house. The drive felt long, even though it was only a few miles away. Every mile I put between myself and our home made me feel more disconnected from her, more disconnected from everything I had ever thought was real. I kept replaying the last few days in my head, the argument, her withdrawal, the coldness that had settled between us. I wanted to believe it was just a rough patch, that we could fix it, that we could talk about it, and move past it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had been ignoring for so long. I pulled into her parents' driveway, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly that my knuckles were white. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the house. What was I even going to say? I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answers, but I knew I needed them. I needed to know if Emma had confided in anyone, if they knew something I didn't. I knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the still air. When her mother opened it, she looked at me with a faint, unreadable expression. "Ryan," she said softly, stepping aside to let me in. "Is everything all right?" I didn't answer right away. The air between us felt thick, and I wasn't sure how to break it. I had never been good at confronting uncomfortable truths, but it seemed like today I had no choice. "I don't know," I said, my voice unsteady. "I don't know what's happening with Emma. She left last night. She didn't really say why, but she said she needed space. And I stopped myself, the words suddenly feeling too heavy to say out loud. I swallowed hard, looking for the right way to explain everything that had been building up inside me. "I don't know if she's coming back. I don't know if she wants to come back." Her mother's face softened, and she led me into the living room, where we both sat down. I felt a strange sense of relief being here, even though I didn't know what I was hoping to find. "She's been distant for a while," Emma's mom said quietly, her voice carrying a sadness that I hadn't expected. "But I didn't think it was this serious. She's always been so private about her feelings. She never likes to talk about what's bothering her until it's too late." I felt a pang of guilt. I should have known. I should have seen it coming. But all I could do was sit there and listen as her mother spoke about Emma's struggles, how she had been feeling lost, unsure of who she was, even before the seminar. How she had been questioning everything, from her career to her relationships, to the person she had become. I didn't know how to respond to any of it. Part of me wanted to scream that none of this was fair, that she couldn't just walk away without explaining herself. But another part of me realized that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just about me. This was about her, about Emma trying to figure out who she was and what she wanted from life. "She's been trying to find herself for a while," her mother continued, her voice tinged with both concern and resignation. "I think this seminar, It changed her. But I don't think she fully understands what it means yet. And I don't think she knows how to tell you that. I sat back in the chair, trying to absorb what her mother was saying. I wanted to ask more questions, but I couldn't find the words. My mind was still reeling from everything. It felt like everything I knew about our life together was suddenly shattered. The woman I had spent years building a life with was gone, replaced by someone who seemed like a stranger. I don't know what to do, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I should just give her the space she's asking for, or try to fight for us. I don't know how to fix this. Her mother sighed and reached over, placing a hand gently on mine. Sometimes, Ryan, the hardest thing to do is nothing at all. You can't fix everything, and you can't make her come back before she's ready. But you can be patient. You can show her that you're there when she's ready to talk. Her words felt like a balm, but I wasn't sure if I could believe them. Could I really just wait? Could I let Emma go, knowing that she might never come back? I left her parents' house that afternoon with more questions than answers. I didn't know if I could wait. I didn't know if I even wanted to wait. But one thing was certain. Emma had changed, and I had to come to terms with that, whether I liked it or not. I didn't sleep that night. The weight of everything that had happened, the unanswered messages, the silence from Emma, the lingering questions that refused to let me be, kept me up. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the phone in my hand. I hadn't heard a single word from her. Nothing. The thought of her out there, somewhere, living a life I couldn't touch, consumed me. The uncertainty was maddening. It felt like the world was pressing in on me, the walls of the house too close, the air too thick. I kept trying to rationalize it, to tell myself that this was just a phase, a temporary disconnect that would pass once Emma figured things out. But deep down, I knew that something had shifted, something I couldn't undo, no matter how much I wanted to. Around 2 a.m., when the house had settled into that stillness that comes with the dead of night, I heard a faint knock on the door. It startled me, pulling me out of my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. At this hour, who could possibly be at my door? I stood up slowly, my feet dragging as I moved toward the door. I hesitated before opening it, the feeling of dread settling in my chest. When I finally pulled it open, I was met by a figure standing just outside in the dim porch light. It was Emma. She stood there, her face shadowed, her expression unreadable. She was wearing the same clothes she'd worn the night she left, loose jeans and a sweatshirt. But there was something different about her. She wasn't the same woman I had known. Her eyes were tired, her posture stiff, as if she was carrying the weight of something she hadn't yet said. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We just stood there, two people who were once close, now strangers, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Emma, I finally whispered, almost afraid to break the silence. She looked up at me, her gaze soft but distant. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I didn't hesitate. I stepped aside, allowing her to enter without saying another word. The moment she stepped inside, the air seemed to shift. It felt like we were both holding our breath, waiting for something to happen. We stood in the living room, facing each other, the weight of the situation too heavy to ignore. She didn't sit down, didn't make herself comfortable. She just stood there, her hands fidgeting with the sleeves of her sweatshirt, her eyes darting around the room as if she was looking for something that wasn't there. Why did you come back? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, the words carrying more hurt than I intended. You left. You told me you needed space. Why are you here now? She opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't come right away. She seemed to be struggling with what to say, as if every word had weight, as if every sentence carried a consequence she wasn't prepared for. I don't know what I want anymore, she finally said, her voice barely audible. I thought I did, but I don't. I thought leaving would help me figure things out, but it just made everything worse. I thought maybe I needed to be alone, but I don't think I do. I stared at her, my heart racing. Then what do you need, Emma? What do you want? She looked at me, her eyes filling with something that resembled regret, but it wasn't enough to break the wall between us. I don't know, she repeated, her voice cracking. I've been so confused. I thought I needed to find myself, but maybe I've just been running away from the truth. The words hung in the air, the silence that followed thick with unspoken emotions. I felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly replaced with doubt. She was back, yes, but that didn't mean things were fixed. It didn't mean that whatever had broken us could be put back together. I took a step toward her, my voice barely a whisper. Emma, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how we got here, but I can't keep living in this limbo. You're either in this, or you're not. I can't wait forever. Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt, sadness, maybe even fear. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then closed it again, her hands trembling slightly as they fell to her sides. I want to fix this, she said quietly, her voice almost too soft to hear. But I don't know how. I don't know if I can. I felt a lump form in my throat. The woman standing in front of me was still the woman I had married, but she was also someone else, a version of herself I didn't recognize, someone I was struggling to reach. I don't know if we can fix it either, I said, the words tasting bitter as they left my mouth. But if you're going to be here, if you want to try, we have to be honest. No more running. No more silence. She nodded, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice cracking. I never meant for it to get this bad. I never meant to hurt you. I wanted to reach out, to pull her into my arms and tell her that everything would be okay, that we could get through this together. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Something had changed, and I wasn't sure if either of us could undo it. I don't know what happens next, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of everything we hadn't said. But we have to figure it out. Together, or not at all. Emma took a step forward, and for the first time in days, she reached out and touched my arm, her hand warm against my skin. I want to try, she said softly. I really do. The space between us felt a little smaller, but it didn't mean the road ahead would be easy. We still had so much to face, so much we needed to understand about each other. But for the first time in what felt like forever, there was a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. The next few days were the most surreal I had ever experienced. I kept waiting for the silence to swallow us again, for the tension to return, for Emma to disappear just as quickly as she had come back. But something unexpected happened. Slowly, bit by bit, the cracks between us began to heal, though I knew it wouldn't be quick or easy. It wasn't an overnight fix, but it was a start. The first night after she returned, we didn't say much. We just sat on the couch, side by side, both of us still reeling from everything that had happened. But there was a quiet understanding that wasn't there before. Emma didn't try to rush into explanations, and I didn't try to force her to talk. We just let the silence be what it was, comforting in its own way. The next morning, she woke up early, and for the first time in a long while, she made coffee for both of us. It was such a simple thing, but for some reason, it felt monumental. We sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and exchanging small, tentative smiles. No words were necessary. We both knew we had a long road ahead of us, but just being in the same space without the heavy weight of unspoken words felt like a small victory. In the days that followed, we started talking more. Not about everything all at once, but in bits and pieces. Emma told me more about her struggles, how the seminar had opened her eyes to things she had been avoiding for years. It wasn't about me, it never was, but it had affected her in ways she didn't know how to articulate. I thought I needed to find something outside of myself, she explained one evening, her voice more open than I had heard it in a long time. But really, I was just avoiding facing what was inside me. I had to let go of the idea that I could only be who I was when I was with you, or when I was the perfect version of myself. I had to figure out who I was on my own. I listened carefully, and in that moment, I realized that her journey wasn't one I could control. She wasn't running away from me. She was running toward herself. And that was something I had to respect. I told her how I had felt, lost, confused, and terrified of losing her. I admitted that I hadn't been the best partner. I had let my own fears dictate my actions instead of communicating openly. We both made mistakes, and that was okay. What mattered now was that we were trying to understand each other again. There were still moments of doubt. There were days when the uncertainty crept in, and I could see it in her eyes. She was still figuring things out. But I knew that we weren't the same people we were when she walked out. And that was okay. People change. We change. And that's what life is about, isn't it? Evolving together. One evening, a week later, we went for a walk, something we hadn't done in months. The air was crisp, and the streets were quiet, the kind of calm that only comes with the end of a long day. We didn't talk much at first, just walking side by side, taking in the familiar sights of our neighborhood. But then Emma spoke up. I think we're going to be okay, she said, her voice soft but sure. I looked at her, feeling something inside me shift. Yeah, I replied, with more confidence than I had in a long time. I think we are. It wasn't a perfect solution. Our problems hadn't magically disappeared, and I knew there would be more hard conversations ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I believed we could face them together. Emma wasn't just a reflection of my hopes anymore. She was her own person, and that was something I had to honor. And in return, she was learning to trust me again, to trust that I could stand beside her, no matter what came next. When we got home, she turned to me with a small smile. "I'm not sure what the future holds," she said, "but I think we've got a shot at it. Together." I took her hand, squeezing it gently, knowing that the future was uncertain. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't afraid of it. Together, we would figure it out, one step at a time. And that, in the end, was all we really needed.